Hello, this is still Reese Wallace.
And this is still Luke Clancy.
And this is the Cedar Log!
Yeah.
Hello and welcome. And today we're still talking about Delmont, but we're kind of getting into its proper birth, and we're going to see how far into Delmont we get today. So, just like last time, much of this info is from the book A Whale Boat on the Unami by our advisor, Michael G. Comfort. And he also helped us with some updated information that's not in the book, but that he's come across since he published it. So we left off when Delmont was created with a purchase of 35 acres for $600, which is again around like $14,100 today. And you have to remember that Delmont was in the most rural part of Montgomery County at the time. So thus, the ways scouts took to get to camp was, in my opinion, one grand adventure. Due to the lack of paved roads and highways, the scouts had to take trolleys, railroads, and then walk the 3 miles from the railroad station at Green Lane.
Do you know what else is like walking 3 miles when you're trying to go to summer camp? That's right, trying to find out history. And yes, the Cedar Log now has ads. But the ads we're looking for is nothing else but just help. We're asking for help from anyone who has been a part of Camp Delmont, Resica Falls Scout Reservation, Big Springs, Firestone, any other camp. Please contact us. If you guys want to have great content and you guys want to have some of the museums at lodge weekends or just have awesome history shared throughout, please contact us. We're begging. We're on our hands and knees right now. Please contact us, and it's going to be worth it in the long run. Thank you all so much, and back to the amazing history by Reese.
Luckily, the quartermaster had a truck, and he would go and pick up your gear, but you had to walk your way to Delmont.
Talk about a great way to start the hiking merit badge.
I know, right? And the camp had 4 departments when they first started out, which were the commissary, medical, quartermaster, and activities. And activities was in charge of sports and games. So folks could visit the camp on the weekends, on weekends only, really, and parents could come visit their scouts at camp pretty much anytime, it seemed like. And parents were picked up in the camp truck and driven to camp unlike their scouts. And the very first season in 1916 ran from July 8th to August 26th.
Now, the original camp really didn't look anything like how we know it today. There was an old stone house called the White House that acted as a camp office. A barn was next to the house, and a pavilion was built to act as an open-air dining hall. It looked something like the dining hall at Novi Bosco, if anyone's ever been there. It's actually a pretty cool dining hall. I've been there a few times. Fun fact about Novi Bosco, it's actually the camp that the Friday the 13th movies were filmed at.
Yeah, it is. They're handicraft lodge, like the one scene where that girl is like screaming because they keep popping through the windows. I'm pretty sure it's the handicraft lodge.
Yeah, I think I've heard that same thing. Anyway, back to the history of Delmont. A dam was provided as a swimming hole at Delmont for this time. It was also a great spot for boating. The boys seemed to really like camp in 1916. Since there were around 60 boys in camp per week, 92 of them stayed for at least 2 weeks at a time. And 21 of them were in camp for 36 weeks. All of this with only 6 staff members.
That is crazy to think they did all that with just 6 staff. I don't want to imagine that as a camp staff member. So the quote-unquote Delmont Day started at 6:30 a.m. with reveille and a polar bear swim and breakfast at 7. All of the scouts had to be clean since the camp doctor would inspect their teeth, faces, and hands for cleanliness. This practice would last into the 1940s.
Oh, that poor doctor with first-year scouts.
Oh, God bless that man, I know. And the scouts swam several times a day with a swim at 10:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. Lunch was served at 12:30, and the afternoon was spent playing sports, hosting an athletic or aquatics meet, going on a nature hike, a treasure hunt, or having a scout craft contest. Dinner was served at 5 p.m. with a retreat at 7, followed by campfire at 7:30, and the campfire had songs, games, contests, stunts, and sometimes a guest speaker. The day officially ended at 9:15 with taps. The scouts kept busy by working on their skills, and prizes were given out for scoutcraft and handicraft. Some of the prizes included a tool chest, a book about trees, and scout axes. By far, the coolest prize was the camp letters CD, which were made out of felt and looked like athletic school letters from the time and were worn just like those. They were given out back at the first Delmont in 1913 and were awarded till 1946. Only 16 scouts earned these in 1916, and these CDs are one of the rarest and most sought after Delmont collector's items to this day. The camp was expanded in late 1916 thanks to Dr. Bertram Wilbur, the president of Wilbur Chocolate Company and the chair of the council camping committee. This would set up the many land donations that would later flesh out Delmont to how we know it today. World War I then occurred and greatly impacted the Scouts of Delaware and Montgomery counties, but we'll save that for another day since I wrote a detailed research paper on the Scouts of the counties and their involvement in the war for a class at my university. In 1917, the area that is Lake Long was really actually a big field, and where the pool currently is at Delmont had a V kind of row of tents, and these tents would be replaced by wooden buildings that were open air and had 8 bunk beds. A similar design was used for the health lodge and director's cabin. Just imagine the open air shacks with walls and an open doorway for the health lodge and director's cabin. 1918 also added more buildings with the construction of the Big House. The Big House was a copy of a Lenni Lenape longhouse, and it could hold 200 scouts. That's crazy. The only other Lenape longhouse in the country was located in Oklahoma, where the Lenni Lenape live today. Unfortunately, the Big House was torn down in the 1950s.
Now, Reese, before we end this episode, I just have a quick question. Do you think that this longhouse was kind of like the foundation for the Native American village at Ruska and Musser today?
I mean, there's probably some influence, but I think the Scouts have always, there's many different appeals of Scouting, which is kind of what I cover in that paper I wrote for school. And one of them is kind of that naturalist, like back to nature and like also rugged manliness that was really attractive back then because you had a growing middle class and people were worried like, oh, are our boys growing up to be strong enough and have strong character and this and that, they were concerned. And I think Scouting has always had that association of Native Americans as like that positive role model. Now that has its own implications, which I won't get into, but probably I think any tradition you start will slowly like influence things in the future, even if people don't directly remember it. So the Big House probably did lead to like our village programs to today, but not in like the most direct way.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Reese. And that is all for this week's episode of the Cedar Log. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns about this episode or previous episodes, please feel free to contact us at history@unamilodge.org. And I hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask.